Hello everybody, hello from YouTube, and this is just another Embargo Man video. Now we're not talking about anything, nothing political. There's no special introduction with no video editing or anything like that. But I could tell you what, on the preview on the PlayStation 5, Sony have up to date with the PlayStation 5, with the PS5, right? It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be a very awesome console. I'm in Florida. Yeah. What else I could say? Yes. But the thing is that PlayStation, like everything with the PlayStation brand has been awesome. To add into that, well, there's so many rumors about Sega, heard anything like rumors that Apple's gonna go with Sega. But yeah, that's just another thing that I have thought that Sega is gonna crush Sony's territory once Apple acquired Sega. Other than that, it's like there's nothing about the Sega thing, even though I still love the Sega Genesis. Though I had it, bought it used or something like that, the first generation Sega Genesis. But this is Sony PlayStation. What it is that, how would companies that screw up? Okay, let me tell you about Sega's screw-ups. Sega's screw-ups started with the Dreamcast. Sure, it was with Microsoft, but after all, Sega definitely went out of the game. It's becoming more of a publishing company, more than making mobile games for the iPhone and for the Android devices and for the Xbox. All right, the first time that Sega went off the game console business with the Dreamcast. And the thing also that's also a screw up is Sega has been screwing up since the Saturn. The Saturn came out in '95, but US sales wasn't that. They never have anything in common. It was like better off in Japan and Europe. But after all, the thing with the Saturn has not been very successful than the Sega Genesis. What it is just price. Sega started to screw them up of selling the Saturn for like $500, right? Sony PlayStation starting to conquer with selling their first PlayStation for $300. Then came the Dreamcast. Then what else that also Sega has been screwing up also? It wasn't that big here in the US. It was bigger like in the UK and Japan. Most likely Europe and Japan. And other places where Sega has been done very well. The PlayStation 2 has been selling a lot because of where's one thing? A DVD. PlayStation 3, also with a Blu-ray player, Xbox 360 was the main winner. Like back in 2003, when I said, when there's no Dreamcast out, Sega was starting to make a Sonic game for the Xbox. That's when they start making games for the Xbox and for the PlayStation and the failing GameCube, right? Then I would wonder, yeah, it seems that, okay, that's Sega's screw up. Their future owner or Sega's future management has been screwing up too. It would be awesome by now, even if Steve Jobs were to be alive, see the potential of Xbox and Sony. Probably, Sony will be scared of Apple in that way. The Apple blew them out with the iPod and stuff, but then when they blew them out with the iPod, they have been actually, very successful. Very successful lately with the iPod and the iPhone. Yeah, most likely that there has been that must be likely Apple screwing up. They were working with Bandai with a game console called a Pippin. I think some people remember the Pippin, right? Apple's first console. Well, that never make an offshot. That's Apple's first screw up because it wasn't very successful. It was too expensive. Same thing what Sega did when they had to face against Sony's getting out the PlayStation, right? The main thing is about what these companies screwing up, because we're talking about Sega screw ups. Now we're going to talk about Apple screw ups. Apple has been screwing up lately. I have most likely that the first thing they didn't do is that their third-party company, Foxconn, what Apple is supposed to enter in the TV industry, Sony's number 3 or number 2. I don't know. I have a Sony TV. They make awesome TVs. And I'm using a Sony product also. I'm recording it with a Sony product. The thing with Sony, not Sony, but the thing with Apple is like they have done very good marketing. Apple marketing for the iPhone and for other products have been very well done. Very well done because they marketed the iPhone. They marketed everything. But after all, Apple didn't have screw up as their TV business. They never have bought Sharp. It's a Japanese maker. They make the screens for the iPhone with the Aquos technology. That for that money, Apple didn't do. This is the dumbest decision Apple never made, is acquired Sharp Electronics. They never acquired Sharp Electronics to enter in the TV industry. You could have like they could have like the Apple TV included in a Sharp TV. Apple TV included. That would be awesome. Well, then Sharp would be king, because of Apple. Apple screwed that deal up because their third-party company that makes the iPhones, Foxconn, bought the Sharp Electronics company. This is just another screw-up from Apple. Apple never go into the TV industry, but yeah, that ship has sailed away for Apple. Apple's purchasing Sharp, that ship has sailed away. One thing that has been messed up with Apple is the iPhone 7. iPhone 7, all they do is they have this adapter to plug this. This is an audio jack for earplugs. These are Sony earplugs. They took this away from their phones. So, what is the reason for buying the Bluetooth enhanced, earbuds? The AirPod are like extremely expensive. I don't know what the quality would be, but there's other like Bose and so on that have more experience than Apple. But even though they purchase Beats, but they have like experience in sound, and they have been more years in sound, more than Apple, even though Apple bought Beats. But then it's too expensive. For the same price, you get a Bose or a JBL Bluetooth earbuds, and you get probably the same quality or better quality, cheaper, or the same price as the iPod buds from that Apple do. Like some people like have these things together, right? That's another Apple screw up in a bunch. Like how you do with this charging thing, and then you using Bluetooth equipment has been like screw up the fun. The cable is worth it. There's no better problem than the cable. Bluetooth is awesome, but there's no better off than the cable. And you need that because the phone, kills the battery. Whatever you're using that kills the battery one. That ain't cool. Apple has screwed up in that. Then we're talking about the PlayStation and what Sony has been screwed up. There's more marketing and focus on the PlayStation. They're like, I have an Xperia phone. And I think I was changing for the XZ because they sell it unlocked. And this is what it is with, having choices that, like, they still sell the iPhone, but they choose, Chinese manufacturers, and then Chinese companies, they're copying the Xperia design. And I knew that. I like AT&T and Sprint and all these providers here in the US are doing that. But what it is with the PlayStation 5 is like the Samsung might make good products, but the goggles, the VR, because that VR thing has been a long time, way before the Galaxy Gear or something like that. It has been a long time. Sega has done it, everybody else has done it, but this time, like Sony has their VR with the PlayStation, the PS5. I have been designing a phone at my house, drawing in the room, having all these other Sony gear, even though Sony is watching. Let me tell you about the PlayStation 5 or the PS5. They have the PlayStation, it's becoming a service that you can use on any phone and even on your iPhone, right? Is that without the earphone jack that Sony has eliminated, that Apple has eliminated from their iPhones, and even Motorola has followed, Sony still have the headphone jack. And Sony still have the headphone jack. And that's cool, because they have to have the Xperia Z8 or Z7 or whatever. Off the line, I could tell you what, this is where you have the goggles and whatever it is, a phone that could interact with your game console, with the PlayStation game console. This is just Sony related items. Sony Mobile, who could go with the PlayStation team to have this thing, an app called only for the Sony phones, PlayStation on the Go. PlayStation on the Go would be like something only work for Xperia phones, and that would be like, you save any PlayStation 5 games in your PS5, you go and set it up to the phone saves the games. It has like a little wireless to interact with the video games, and then with the game console, with the PS5 with the PlayStation on the Go, plus the PlayStation 5 would be better graphics. They could also play Android games. Would be Android based PS5, Android based PS5 that will only work with they will work with Android phones, but only with Sony phones, because they need to like have this infrared, like this things with the communication with the phone and game console, even though that's just another thing to get it out in the US. Sony in the phone market with their new Xperia line of phones, and definitely, all odds are off. Getting Apple a run for its money, and even Apple's main competitor. So that means the PlayStation would be there. Like Sony could have a boost in their mobile phone market. They have a phone that interacts with the PlayStation 5. And they have the VR thing and other stuff with Sony gear to charge the Xperia phones and interaction, and then they'll have the Sony VR, the goggles that could work on your Xperia phone that interacts with your PlayStation. And then that would be awesome, also cool, that you could attach the phone with the VRX, the Sony PlayStation X, VRX goggles, the VRX. Because the X is for Xperia, because it works with PlayStation VRX goggles, or I don't know what it's called. You could, if the phone works in the watch, but the phone It has like the game memory or something like that, the memory for the game, the PS5 games. But with the watch and stuff, smartwatches. But then with the VRX, that means you could connect the phone to interact with that, and you could play the PlayStation 5 games in virtual reality. You be in the game. You'll be part of the game. And that's the thing about the PlayStation 5. PS5 would be more into this. This is more than just a Super Bowl commercial trying to copycat the Apple commercial from 1984. Sony could do that. This is a phone that you can interact with your PlayStation. And then you have Fabio, and Fabio plays Samson. Samson and Delilah. Lucy Lawless plays Delilah. Cannot pick up a hammer to destroy the hologram that is played by Bill Murray. But then the PlayStation 5 added in there would help Xperia boost up. Sony Mobile could boost up their entire, like they sell it in T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever. Why? Because a phone that could interact with the PlayStation 5 would be awesome. Yes, it would be awesome. Xperia Z8 or Z7, and probably Z8, because we need to jump in. Like Microsoft did it with Windows. They say Windows 8. They jumped to 10. So Xperia has to jump to 8. Xperia Z8. Like the Z8 will be, all plastic glass, and also one thing, it has to be an OLED. Like Sony has an OLED TV, OLED phone. An OLED phone could interact with the PlayStation 5. You could use the goggles. You could have with your phone working with the VRX goggles, PS VRX, and then after you work with the VRX, you could play your PlayStation 5 in virtual reality. That would be awesome, right? It would be awesome that the PlayStation 5 could boost Sony Mobile's in industry. You have this interaction with this cool gadget. A phone that you can interact with a game console would be awesome, because Sony will see the brighter future. Even though if Sega has screwed up with the headphone jack, the main thing that what Sony will have is the headphone jack. A phone that interacts with the PlayStation 5 has a headphone jack. You don't need no Bluetooth bullcrap, man. That's like no adapter to have the headphone jack like Apple does. Apple has screwed up their business and with the iPhone 7. But Apple, please bring back the headphone jack, man. And then Sony, you could do that good. You could do it good. A phone that interacts with the PlayStation 5. Virtual reality goggles that interacts with the phone and PlayStation 5. And has an app that says PlayStation on the... Well, that has to be included with the Xperia Z8 phone. That's called PlayStation on the Go. And with the PlayStation on the Go app included with the Xperia series phone would be awesome. It would be the best phone and the best combination between plus the PlayStation 5 will work with Google. Google and Sony would have the interactive, like they use the PlayStation 5 will use the Android operating system. Game console that use Android operating system. That means that the PlayStation 5 will be a bestseller. Well, better graphics, everything under the sun, for the PlayStation 5. Well, Microsoft will be in deep trouble hearing about a phone that interacts with a game console and everything. PlayStation 5. Well, this is just an interview on what I think about the PlayStation 5 interaction. The PlayStation 5 would be included, is packaged, a phone, the Xperia phone that could work with the PlayStation, that it could work with the PS VRX goggles that use the phone, interacts with the phone. The Xperia Z will have PlayStation on the Go included, and other Xperia phones on the way with the PlayStation on the Go. The PlayStation on the Go would be that the phone to interact with the PlayStation 5. You could save the games, you could play the games, and even with your VR goggles that is included for the Xperia phone, could use a PlayStation on the go, and you could play PlayStation on virtual reality. That would be awesome. I think that's how I see the idea of PlayStation. The PlayStation 5 would boost Sony Mobile's, profits, that their phone could interact with the PlayStation and with the virtual reality goggles and all the gadgets and plus a smartwatch and everything else under the sun, chargers, whatever. That will be it. That would be it, because I think Sony could do the best thing and the best idea to have a Sony, the PlayStation 5, to include PlayStation on the go with their phone. Thanks for watching this video. Goodbye and have a nice day, and see you in the next video on Embargo Man. And please don't let to subscribe on the Embargo Man channel. Bye. This is Miguel from Embargo Man, recording on a Sony product.